Alabama, Arkansas, I do love my mom for not the way that I do love you. Well, holy moly, me oh my, you're the apple of my eye. Boy, I never loved one like you.
What happens when a young singer takes one of rock music's most legendary songs, removes almost everything audiences expect to hear, and somehow makes the entire performance feel even bigger? That is exactly what happened when Angelina Jordan stepped onto the stage of America's Got Talent, The Champions, and performed her extraordinary interpretation of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. At first, there was almost nothing to hide behind. No massive rock band, no explosive stage production, no complicated choreography. Instead, Angelina stood in front of the audience with an understated arrangement and allowed her voice to carry the moment. And that decision became the story. Angelina was only 13 when she performed the song, but her approach sounded dramatically different from a conventional young talent show performance. Rather than trying to imitate Freddie Mercury note for note, she transformed the song into something slower, softer, more soulful, and deeply personal. The reaction was immediate. The judges were visibly impressed, the audience erupted, and Heidi Klum ultimately used her golden buzzer, sending Angelina directly forward in the competition. But the biggest development came shortly afterward. Queen themselves noticed. On January 8, 2020, the official Queen account shared Angelina's performance and responded with the words, "Wow, what a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody." That is not a rumor. That is a documented public reaction from the band's official account.
And suddenly, this was no longer simply another talent show performance. It had become a moment, connecting a young Norwegian singer with one of the most recognizable songs in rock history. And that is where the story gets even more interesting. Because Angelina was not trying to become Freddie Mercury. She was doing something much harder. She was trying to make a Queen classic sound like Angelina Jordan. And somehow, it worked. There are songs you can cover, and then there are songs that almost feel untouchable. Bohemian Rhapsody belongs in the second category. Released by Queen in 1975, the song became one of the defining recordings of rock history. It moves through multiple musical styles, from intimate vocal passages to ballad sections, operatic elements, and hard rock intensity. That structure alone makes it difficult to perform, but the biggest challenge is emotional. For decades, audiences have associated the song with Freddie Mercury, whose voice and personality became inseparable from its identity. So when Angelina Jordan chose to perform it, the obvious question was simple. Why would anyone attempt something that dangerous? The answer appears to be that Angelina did not approach the song as a competition with Mercury. She approached it as an interpretation. Instead of reproducing the original arrangement exactly, she stripped it down and introduced a more intimate, jazz-influenced atmosphere. That difference is crucial.
Angelina was not saying, "I can sing this song exactly like Queen." She was effectively saying, "This is what this song sounds like through my voice." And that distinction may explain why the performance attracted attention beyond the normal talent show audience. For many singers, technical accuracy becomes the goal. For Angelina, interpretation became the goal. Her voice moved through the melody with a restrained quality that made the performance feel almost conversational at certain moments. Then, when she opened up, the contrast became even more powerful. That contrast is one reason viewers still discuss the performance years later. And it also explains why the reaction from Queen carried so much weight. Because the official response was not simply recognition of a young singer. It was recognition of a reinterpretation. The band saw someone taking one of its most famous songs and finding a completely different emotional doorway into it. That is a very different achievement from simply singing the right notes. There is another important part of the story. The phrase, "rock legends were speechless," sounds like classic YouTube drama. But what is actually confirmed? This is where the story needs a little separation between fact, interpretation, and fan excitement. The strongest confirmed fact is this. The official Queen social media account publicly acknowledged Angelina Jordan's performance after her America's Got Talent appearance.
The message praised her rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody and tagged Angelina.
That matters because Queen is not simply another musical act. The surviving members of the classic Queen lineup, particularly Brian May and Roger Taylor, represent a major part of rock history. However, there is an important distinction. It is not accurate to claim that every major rock legend around the world personally reacted to Angelina's performance, unless there is direct evidence for each individual. That is where online discussions sometimes go too far. Fan communities have repeatedly described Angelina's performance as something that impressed rock royalty, and some posts have expanded the story into much larger claims. But those claims should be treated carefully. The documented evidence gives us something powerful enough without exaggeration. Queen's official account saw the performance. Queen's official account praised the performance, and the response happened publicly. That alone is remarkable. The word speechless is better understood as a description of the emotional reaction surrounding the performance, rather than a verified quote from every rock legend mentioned in fan discussions. And honestly, that makes the story more credible, because the real story does not need invented reactions.
Presenter TV. A 13-year-old singer from Norway walked onto one of America's biggest talent show stages, performed a radically different version of a Queen classic, received the golden buzzer, and then received public recognition from Queen themselves. That is already extraordinary. Sometimes the facts are more dramatic than the rumor. The surprising part is that Angelina Jordan was not an unknown teenager who suddenly became famous on American television. By the time she reached America's Got Talent, she had already spent years building an unusual musical identity. Angelina first became widely known in Norway as a child performer. At only 8 years old, she won Norway's Got Talent in 2014 after performing jazz standards. That victory helped establish her reputation as a remarkably mature young vocalist. Her career continued beyond the competition. She performed at major events, released music, and developed a substantial online audience. So when she arrived at America's Got Talent The Champions, she was not simply another contestant looking for her first opportunity. She was already an artist with an established history. That context changes the way we should understand her Bohemian Rhapsody performance. She was not discovering her voice on television. She was bringing a voice she had already developed into a completely different environment. And that environment was huge. The Champions format brought together established acts from different Got Talent franchises, creating a competition where contestants were expected to make an immediate impression. Angelina had to compete not simply against singers, but against performers with international reputations. Her response was surprisingly simple. She did not attempt to overwhelm the stage. She reduced the stage. That is an important artistic decision. Instead of relying on spectacle, she created intimacy. Instead of shouting for attention, she made people lean in. Instead of performing Queen exactly as audiences remembered it, she gave them a version that felt almost vulnerable. That is probably why the first few seconds became so important. There was no giant musical explosion. There was just Angelina. And then, the song began. For viewers unfamiliar with her earlier career, that moment introduced them to an artist who had already been developing her sound for years. For longtime fans, it felt like another step in an unusual journey. And for Queen, it became a very unexpected new interpretation of one of their defining songs. Then came the moment every talent show viewer recognizes instantly, the golden buzzer. Angelina's performance was so well received that Heidi Klum pressed the golden buzzer, sending her directly through to the next stage. The significance was not simply the button itself, it was what the button represented. Angelina had entered the stage with almost no conventional visual spectacle.
She had relied on musical control, and the judges responded. Howie Mandel described the moment as something that could change her life and career. Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum also expressed strong approval, while the audience reacted enthusiastically. But there is another layer to this moment. Angelina was 13. The maturity of the performance contrasted sharply with her age. That contrast became one of the central talking points surrounding the audition. People were not simply saying that she had a good voice. They were reacting to the unusual combination of youth, control, phrasing, and emotional restraint. And that combination is difficult to manufacture. A young performer can learn technique. A young performer can rehearse a song hundreds of times. But emotional interpretation is harder to fake. Angelina seemed comfortable leaving space inside the music. She did not rush every phrase, she allowed certain notes to breathe. That made the performance feel less like a child trying to prove herself and more like an experienced vocalist telling a story. The golden buzzer, therefore, became more than a television moment. It became confirmation that the judges recognized something distinctive. Of course, a golden buzzer does not automatically prove that an artist is destined to become the greatest singer of a generation. That would be opinion. But it does prove something important. On that particular night, Angelina made an unusually strong impression.
And the reaction from Queen shortly afterward added another layer of credibility to the moment. The talent show judges were impressed, the audience was impressed, and the band behind the original song publicly acknowledged her interpretation. That combination is what made the story so powerful. So, what exactly made Angelina Jordan's version stand apart? The answer is not simply a great voice. It was the way she changed the emotional architecture of the song. Queen's original Bohemian Rhapsody is famous for its dramatic shifts and massive production. Angelina's interpretation moved in the opposite direction. The arrangement became more intimate, the instrumentation was reduced, and the vocal became the center of attention. This gave Angelina room to use qualities associated with her jazz and soul influences. Instead of attacking every phrase with maximum power, she used dynamics. Soft moments became genuinely soft. Stronger moments felt stronger because they were surrounded by restraint. That is a basic principle of musical storytelling. If everything is loud, nothing feels loud. If everything is dramatic, nothing feels dramatic. Angelina understood that instinctively. Her performance also avoided the trap of trying to imitate Freddie Mercury. That would have been almost impossible. Mercury had a completely different vocal identity, stage personality, and historical context. Trying to reproduce him would have invited constant comparison. Angelina instead created distance from the original. That distance gave her freedom. She could bend phrases, she could slow the emotional movement, she could make the lyrics feel more personal. And that may be the most important reason the performance continues to attract reactions. It was recognizable enough to immediately connect with the original, but different enough to become its own performance. That is the difference between imitation and interpretation. And when musicians from the world of rock hear a famous song being transformed rather than copied, that can create a very different kind of attention. This is also why the Queen response matters. The band did not publicly criticize her for changing the arrangement. They praised the rendition. Their official account described it simply as a remarkable rendition. That short message became one of the most memorable external reactions connected to the performance. And sometimes a few words from the original artist can carry more weight than hundreds of exaggerated headlines. But there is another side to this story. The internet loves a good mystery, and Angelina Jordan's AGT appearance has generated plenty of speculation over the years. Some fans have created theories about why certain performances were removed, how television contracts may have affected the competition, and whether Angelina's career plans influenced what happened behind the scenes. Those discussions can be fascinating, but they should not be confused with confirmed information. A rumor can become repeated so many times that it starts to look like a fact. But repetition does not create evidence. The safer approach is to separate the story into 3 categories. First, confirmed facts. Angelina performed Bohemian Rhapsody on America's Got Talent, The Champions. She was 13 at the time. Heidi Klum used the golden buzzer. Queen's official account publicly praised the performance. Those are documented. Second, interpretation. Many listeners consider the performance emotionally extraordinary. Some critics and fans describe it as one of the most memorable talent show performances of its era. That is a matter of opinion, even when the opinion is widely shared. Third, rumor. Claims about secret contracts, private negotiations, hidden motives, or specific reactions from unnamed rock musicians require direct evidence before they can be presented as fact. And that is especially important when a headline uses dramatic language such as "Global rock legends were speechless." It makes a powerful title, but responsible reporting should explain what we actually know. In Angelina's case, the confirmed story is already strong. Queen publicly acknowledged her, the judges praised her, millions of viewers discovered her, and the performance became part of her growing international reputation. There is no need to manufacture a backstage scandal. There is no need to invent quotes. The truth is compelling enough.
And that is exactly how this story should be told. A social media post can disappear in seconds, but sometimes one short message becomes part of music history. Queen's response to Angelina Jordan is one of those moments. The official Queen account posted its reaction shortly after Angelina's performance, writing, "Wow, what a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody," while tagging Angelina. The wording was short. There was no long explanation, no complicated analysis, just recognition. But consider what that means. Bohemian Rhapsody is not simply a popular song, it is one of Queen's defining works. It is deeply connected to Freddie Mercury's legacy and to the band's identity. So hearing a 13-year-old singer radically reinterpret it was always going to attract attention. The fact that the official Queen account chose to publicly acknowledge the performance gave the moment an additional layer. It connected two generations. On one side was a legendary rock composition created decades earlier. On the other was a young Norwegian singer building a modern audience through television and the internet. The performance became a bridge. And that bridge is perhaps more interesting than the exaggerated idea that every rock legend suddenly stopped everything to react. We do not need to claim that. We know Queen saw it, we know Queen praised it, and we know the reaction was reported by multiple music publications. That is enough. It also shows something important about music itself. Great songs can survive reinterpretation. In fact, sometimes reinterpretation is exactly what keeps them alive. A younger artist takes an old song and hears something different inside it. The melody remains, the lyrics remain, but the emotional perspective changes. Angelina did that with Bohemian Rhapsody. She did not replace Queen. She opened another door into the song. And that may be why her version continues to attract new listeners years after the original television broadcast. Years later, the biggest question may not be whether Angelina Jordan won the competition. It may be whether that performance changed the trajectory of her career. And the answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. Angelina did not win America's Got Talent: The Champions. In the finale, she performed a version of Louis Capaldi's Someone You Loved alongside Tyler Butler Figueroa, while Ksenia Simonova provided a sand art story. She ultimately did not receive enough votes from the superfans to enter the final top 5. That result is important because it reminds us that talent show success and long-term artistic success are not always the same thing. A contestant can lose a competition and still gain millions of new listeners. A singer can fail to win a trophy and still create a performance people remember years later. Angelina's Bohemian Rhapsody performance became one of those moments. Modern retrospectives have continued to feature it, with reports noting that the performance accumulated tens of millions of views online.
And that tells us something about the way audiences consume music today. Television creates the moment. The internet extends the moment. Fans react, other musicians respond, clips circulate, and eventually a performance can become bigger than the original broadcast. That is what happened here. Angelina's performance became discoverable by people who never watched the original episode. Some discovered it through reaction videos, others through music publications, others through fan communities, and new generations continue finding the performance through YouTube. That is why the moment remains relevant, not because it was the final result of a talent competition, but because it created an artistic memory. The golden buzzer was television. The Queen reaction was news. The millions of views were audience behavior, and the continued interest became something else entirely: legacy. That is a much more difficult thing to manufacture, and Angelina's performance earned it through interpretation rather than spectacle. So, were global rock legends really left speechless by Angelina Jordan? The honest answer is more interesting than the headline. There is strong evidence that Queen themselves noticed Angelina's performance and publicly praised her rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. There is strong evidence that the America's Got Talent judges were deeply impressed. There is strong evidence that the performance became a major viral moment and continued attracting attention long after the original broadcast. But claims that every major rock legend reacted with shock should be treated as fan language unless supported by direct statements. And that distinction does not make the story weaker, it makes it stronger, because the confirmed facts are already extraordinary. A 13-year-old Norwegian singer walked onto a major American television stage. She chose one of the most recognizable rock songs ever written. She refused to simply imitate the original. Instead, she slowed it down, softened it, and transformed it through her own jazz and soul-influenced style. The judges reacted.
Heidi Klum pressed the golden buzzer, and then the official Queen account publicly responded. That is the moment worth remembering. Not the rumor, not the exaggerated claim, the music. Because Angelina Jordan accomplished something that many experienced performers struggle to achieve. She made a famous song feel new. And perhaps that is why the performance continues to fascinate audiences. When a legendary song is covered, listeners usually compare the new singer with the original. But Angelina created a different question. Not, can she sing like Freddie Mercury? But, what does Bohemian Rhapsody sound like when Angelina Jordan sings it? That is a much more interesting question, and years later, people are still listening to find the answer. So perhaps the real headline is not that rock legends were speechless. Perhaps it is simpler. Angelina Jordan walked into the world of Queen, touched one of its most iconic songs, and left behind an interpretation that could stand on its own. The reaction from Queen was real. The golden buzzer was real. The audience response was real. The rumors are another story. And in the end, the strongest evidence was never found in a headline. It was heard in the first note. Because sometimes, when a singer truly has something different, the room does not need to be told to pay attention. It simply does. And Angelina Jordan made the world listen.